Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, we're about to have a very important conversation because we see that several countries around the continent are gearing towards elections, which is why it's important for us to look at the cost of elections in Africa. From the 1950s through to the 1970s, decolonization swept across Africa. Now, whilst freedom was greeted with euphoria in many places, it could not mask deep political instability that often accompanied independence. Violence and coercion and vote buying became a common means of changing power, with coup, counter-coup, and aborted coup, literally the political landscape on the continent.
Well, this morning we'll be looking at the growth of elections in Africa, the challenges and the opportunities, not forgetting to the economic implication. Well, joining us now is Professor Iraki. He's an associate professor, Faculty of Business and Management Sciences, University of Nairobi. We also have from New Central Television, Abdulateef Ahmed from the research desk, who's here as well. Gentlemen, welcome to the show on Breakfast Central.
Thank you and good morning.
Welcome, good morning.
All right, so let me start off first to Professor. We know regulated campaign financing to be a feature of free and fair elections. Now, are the funding for polls in Africa done as such, looking at the current election period that we find ourselves, especially across Africa?
Good morning, and how are you? It is my big concern that when it comes to campaign financing in Africa, it seems that elections are bought. So in most countries, there's no limit on how much you can use to finance campaigns. The politicians who want political posts at parliamentary level, at presidential level, go to any extent to use money to influence voters. But unless we have laws that can be followed, that can cap the amount you can put in campaigning, then we are going to have people getting into offices not because they have better policies, not because they have better ideas, but because they have more money. And that needs to stop.
All right. Thank you very much. Now let's look at discovery of hidden funds, because this is something that happens in Africa as well as in the West. Funds are hidden, but the discovery of such can affect the candidates involved. What do you make of that happening here in Africa?
Give me the question again, please.
I was saying that the discovery of funds, even in the West as well as in Africa, let's bring it back home to Africa. Do you think that discovery of funds, hidden funds, could affect the candidates involved in the elections?
I don't think that's the big issue. I'm sure I've seen cases in Africa where somebody used some funds that were hidden, some secret funds. Money was given maybe by somebody in another country or somebody within the country. And then later on, we discover that his campaign was funded by ABC and nothing happens. I think until we start living in shame, that if we have done something that is unconstitutional, something that is immoral, unless we are able to feel ashamed of that, then even if the fraud is discovered, even if the money is discovered, most people don't care. And it's unfortunate that most voters in Africa have become addicted to money, but addicted to being bribed, but addicted to being influenced to vote in a certain way. So I don't think it will make a big difference, even if the fraud is discovered.
All right, let's go straight to Abdulateef right now. Abdulateef, I mean, you are one man who has been monitoring elections and development across Africa from the research desk here on New Central. What are the recent trends of electoral processes in Africa, and what have been their major outcomes? I mean, we saw the one in Uganda, Museveni, and of course Shangulayi, and not forgetting to have seen so many that are indeed forthcoming. But let's know, what are your thoughts on this?
Consolidation and electioneering across the continent. We've seen clearly the correlation between elections and smooth transitions between countries. Countries that have been able to run smooth elections in recent times have had relative peace as compared to countries where elections have been a bit tacky and challenging. The development so far clearly shows also that in the northern part of Africa, where presidents would rather stay longer than the usual, there's heightened electioneering, local government and municipality elections running in most of these countries, and it's a clear shift between what existed in the past and what now obtained.
All right. Thank you very much. I'd like to, again, speak with Prof. Let's go to Kenya. And I am asking this because Kenya 2017 elections were believed to have cost about $1 billion, possibly the most expensive in Africa. And we have elections that are forthcoming in Kenya and even in Nigeria. But let's talk about the one that happened in 2017. What impact would you say it had on the economy of Kenya? Prof, are you there?
It is sad that some resources that we could have put to development to improve the living standards of citizens of a country is instead diverted to politics. So when so much money is used in campaigning, it usually have an effect on inflation because people are earning money that never work. So most of the time when you use so much money in politics, there is usually some inflation. And then we have some economic drawback because that money is not put into productive use. That money could have been used to build new highways, to build new schools, to build new hospitals, and improve the standards of living of the country. So the use of so much money in campaigning is usually negative, and we wish it will not happen in Kenya and other African countries. We have better use for our money.
All right. I'm sure, Professor, and of course, Abdulateef, we all have been following the forthcoming elections in these different parts of Africa. Let's take a look at Nigeria as a case study where election or primary forms or presidential forms, so to say, are indeed expensive, going from 100 million naira to 55 million naira and the likes. And we've seen a lot of people coming out to purchase these forms and stating clearly that they want to run. Let's focus on one aspect first before we go to the other. Now, the first aspect I want us to focus on is the aspect of the fact that there are more than many persons vying for this presidential seat. The second aspect is those who are equally vying for these seats are currently in positions of power. Let's start with the first one, the numbers that are vying for this position. I'll take Abdulateef on this one.
It is understandable that one of the ways of having people share ideas and solutions, as the case may be, on how to move the nations forward is contesting for elections and occupying public positions, as the case may be. What you see in the number of people coming out to vote is an increase in the tendency for multi-party democracy. This offers more engagement. It offers a broad spectrum for people to be able to key in their wishes and hopes and aspirations, as against when elections are just about one person or around one person, usually the incumbent who wants to retain power and continue to extend his stay in power, as the case may be. However, when it comes to funding, electioneering is expensive across the world. However, because of the structure we have in most part of the continent, unless this structure is done in a way as to key in the concerns of the masses, those in power, it's usually a class struggle. Not much has changed about that. The struggle between those in power and those who want to get into power, the struggle between those who are in the forces and then those who are within governance, as the case may be. So unless you have a judiciary that is sound, you have civil engagement that is sound, you have even administrators and politicians who get into office because they know what they are meant to do in those places. Elections, will continue to look, as a party of millionaires.
I can see that. All right, Professor, let's look at the second question. Those who are currently in positions of power are still vying for other positions. What do you make out of this, by the way?
In Kenya, we have an interesting case where we have about 47 people who want to be president. There are two hidden contenders, so there are probably seen as power girls. But politics is about interest, and whoever is an incumbent, whoever is in power would want to perpetuate that power, not just when in office, but out of office. So when you have been a president for 5 years, for 10 years, there's certain interest in the role. There's certain connections, there's certain network that you set within the country and outside the country. So you don't want to perpetuate that. That's why you want to come back to power. And if you are going to lose power, you want to still have some levers of power outside, even when you are not inside. So it's not just a question of power and influence, but a question of making sure that you remain relevant. And number two, I think the reason why so many people in Africa want to be president is because of lack of economic opportunity. If Africa had big corporations like IBM or Apple and so on, then those who lose power would probably get good jobs elsewhere. But because the economy is not growing fast enough, everybody thinks you can make a fortune in politics. So let's grow our economies in Africa. There will be less political competition. There will probably be more disciplined political competition. And there will probably be less corruption and less nepotism and use of money because people will have alternatives to power.
Very interesting. Very interesting there. Well, we get the points there. Well, gentlemen, I want to say thank you so much for joining us here on Breakfast Central and helping us to see the challenges that Africans are faced with, and most importantly, the economic impacts that these decisions made by politicians will definitely have. Thank you so much, Professor XN Iraki, and I hope I got that right. And thank you so much, Abdulateef.
Thank you for having me.
For being here as well.